Welcome to online worship with Ben Church. We're so glad that you are joining us this morning or evening or afternoon or middle of the night. Everyone at Ben Church is welcomed wherever you are in your journey in life. Whoever you are, I hope that you know that you are affirmed and loved here at Ben Church. This is the third Sunday of Advent, and today we turn to John. As John baptized new converts, he invited them to live with changed hearts and lives. When asked how to do this, his answers all point to making sure no one is cheated or left without the basic necessities of life, including the right not to be harassed. A full life of joy, which the prophet Isaiah describes as an ever-flowing spring, is the birthright of all children of God. May we act to make it so.
Today, we light the light of joy to illumine the door of welcome. May this light shine in our hearts, in our lives, and in our church. May joy awaken us to possibilities and lead us to greater hospitality. There is room in this inn, a house for the holy.
The first reading this morning is from the Common English Bible, Isaiah chapter 12, verses 2 through 6. God is indeed my salvation. I will trust and won't be afraid. Yea, the Lord is my strength and my shield. He has become my salvation. You will draw water with joy from the springs of salvation, and you will say on that day, thank the Lord, call on God's name, proclaim God's deeds among the peoples, and declare that God's name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, who has done glorious things. Proclaim this throughout all the earth. Shout and sing for joy, city of Zion, because the Holy One of Israel is great among you. Second reading is from Luke chapter 3, verses 7 through 18. Then John said to the crowds who came to be baptized by him, You children of snakes, who warned you to escape from the angry judgment that is coming soon? Produce fruit that shows you have changed your hearts and lives, and don't even think about saying to yourselves, Abraham is our father. I tell you that God is able to raise up Abraham's children from these stones. The axe is already at the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree that doesn't produce good fruit will be chopped down and tossed into the fire. The crowds asked him, What then should we do? He answered, Whoever has 2 shirts must share with the one who has none, and whoever has food must do the same. Even tax collectors came to be baptized. They said to him, Teacher, what should we do? He replied, Collect no more than you are authorized to collect. Soldiers asked, What about us? What should we do? He answered, Don't cheat or harass anyone, and be satisfied with your pay. The people were filled with expectation, and everyone wondered whether John might be the Christ. John replied to them all, I baptize you with water, but the one who is more powerful than me is coming. I'm not worthy to loosen the strap of his sandals. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire. The shovel he uses to sift the wheat from the husks is in his hands. He will clean out his threshing area and bring the wheat into his barn. But he will burn the husks with a fire that can't be put out. With many other words, John appealed to them, proclaiming good news to the people.
Mary, did you know your baby boy one day walk on water? Mary, did you know your baby boy would save our sons and daughters? Did you know your baby boy has come to make you new? This child that you delivered soon deliver you. Mary, did you know your baby boy gives sight to the blind man? Mary, did you know your baby boy would calm the storm with his hand? Did you know your baby boy has walked where angels trod? Your little baby, you kissed the face of God. Oh, Mary, did you know? The blind will see, the deaf will hear, the dead will live again. The lame will leap, the dumb will speak, praises of the Lamb. Oh, Mary, did you know your baby boy is Lord of all creation? Mary, did you know your baby boy will one day rule the nations? Did you know your baby boy is heaven's perfect lamb? The sleeping child you're holding is the great I am. Oh, Mary, did you know?
Well, here we are on Joy Sunday with John the Baptist. He's fun, isn't he? Super fun guy you want to hang out with. So, welcome everyone's here. Welcome everyone that's online. Will y'all just give them a good job? maybe I'm alone, but who hasn't really wanted to offer a John the Baptist smackdown at least once in their life? You know? You brood of vipers, you snakes, you hypocrites, you cotton-headed ninny-muggins. Come on, you know, at least once you wanted to go John the Baptist on somebody. This is how Eugene Peterson sees it in the Message, and it's so great. I always have to reread it, his version. It says, when crowds of people came out for baptism because it was the popular thing to do, John exploded. Brood of snakes, what do you think you're doing slithering down here to the river? Do you think a little water on your snakeskins is going to deflect God's judgment? It's your life that must change, not your skin. And don't think you can pull rank by claiming Abraham as father. Being a child of Abraham is neither here nor there. Children of Abraham are a dime a dozen. God can make children from stones if he wants. What counts is your life. Bam, right? Ooh, take that, suckers. Now, I do not recommend going John the Baptist on anyone outside of this room, but I just thought that maybe we might need to get some of our judgment out today. It's been a hard week, so I'm gonna give you a chance. On the count of 3, we're all gonna yell at the top of our lungs, "You brood of vipers!" Are you in? I see you, Dave Beckett. You know you want to. All right. 1, 2, 3. You brood of vipers! Yes. Feels good, doesn't it? Get that judgment out. And that's what people think about us Christians anyway. We're all a bunch of hypocrites who go to church on Sunday, sing Amazing Grace, and then we don't offer grace for the rest of the week. It's certainly what John seems to be saying. You think your religion, your baptism is going to protect you on Judgment Day. No, what counts is your life. So how's that going, everyone? How are you treating other people? How are you living your faith? Where are mercy and justice and the word of the day, joy, where's that manifesting themselves in you this season? Because I personally have some work to do. So we do these meditations Monday through Friday. I read these meditations online, the Richard Rohr's daily meditations. They're quite wonderful because I knew I couldn't come up with meditations on my own. So this week on Thursday, the meditation was about offering mercy and grace. It was really beautiful. And as I tend to do, I was like, yeah, well maybe one of the things we should think about today as we continue this meditation throughout the day is let's, if somebody offers us some nastiness or whatever, let's just offer mercy and grace, because that's what we do. And I immediately was like, did I say that out loud? Because something's going to happen. I'm going to have to. So the day goes on, and I'm having a great day, y'all. I am filled with God's Spirit. I get to go do a visitation with someone who I absolutely adore, and I left it. I sent a message to Nicole. I'm like, this is the best day. This is like why I do what I do. I just feel like God has called me to this place. And, thank you, Nicole, for working with me. And I get in my car and I leave where I was. I'm feeling really, really good. And I get on 20 and I'm trying to get over in the left-hand lane. And this guy speeds up. Okay, y'all know right there on 20, it's like 35 miles an hour. There's no speeding up right there, right? It's like in the middle of town. I'm like, hey, hold on. I'm over here. I'm going 35, all right? So I'm just going to move on over because I had to turn left and I wasn't sure how soon. And yes, I might be a grandma driver, but whatever. I'm very safe, okay? So I'm going to move over. And this guy starts speeding up. And then he honks on his horn and flips me off. I was so mad, immediately, Hulk, how dare you mess with my day? I was feeling God's presence. remembered what I had said earlier, and I was like, oh man, mercy and grace. So then I prayed for him. And then I remembered this scripture. Brood of vipers. It's me. I am a brood of vipers, and all it took was for one little casual flip off on the road to send me down the negative path. So, today we're talking about John. And John is an interesting fellow. I always love to tell his story. His father, you may remember, we didn't read this year, but his father is Zechariah, who was a priest in the temple in Jerusalem. He's a very important guy. And his mother, John's mother, is Elizabeth. Remember, the kinswoman of Mary, the mother of Jesus. And the angel Gabriel told Zechariah that his wife would bear a child even though she was an old woman. Well, Zechariah, being probably a normal person, is like, no, that's not really going to happen. He didn't believe the angel. The angel immediately takes away Zechariah's ability to speak until he has the child. He's like, oh, really? You're not going to believe me? Well, bam, no speaking for you. It was foretold that this child, John, would be filled with the Spirit of God, even from his mother's womb, and that he would be reared under the strict code of the Nazarites. Now, you can look that up in the book of Numbers. I generally don't look at the book of Numbers unless I want to sleep, but you can look that up and find out all that was entailed in being a Nazarite. But basically, they didn't cut their hair, they didn't drink wine, they didn't eat of the fruit of the vine. It was like very strictly a life that was given over to God, to holiness. He was known familiarly at the time as the Baptist, which translates to mean an immerser, one who baptizes. And we know that he was an actual historical figure outside of the Gospels because Josephus, the historian, speaks about John, giving him this name, the baptizer. And the importance of John in the divine scheme of things, you will remember, is probably summed up best in the testimony of Jesus, who says, among them that are born of women, there has not arisen a greater than John the Baptist. Jesus said that. Brood of vipers. Okay. He lived as a hermit in the desert of Judea until about AD 27. When he's about 30, he begins to preach on the banks of the Jordan against the evils of that time and called folks to penance and baptism, for the kingdom of heaven is close at hand. He attracted huge crowds, and when Jesus came to him, John recognized him as the Messiah and baptized him, saying, "It is I who need baptism from you." Professor Michael White, who is the chair of the Biblical Studies program at the University of Texas, I've gotten to hear him a number of times speak, he talks about John the Baptist as one who was killed because he was critical of the contemporary Herodian ruler Herod Antipas. Now, all of the sources agree on that, both Josephus and the testimony of the Gospels. But exactly what John was critiquing about Herod, we're not entirely sure of. But you've seen the old movies, which are quite fun. The material in the Gospels suggests that it has to do with Herod's marital practices and his personal morality. And there may have been something more political involved in John's condemnation of Herod, as Herod Antipas was tied in intimately with the Roman imperial authorities. But in any case, John was executed by Herod as a troublemaker and a political upstart. So yeah, don't go John the Baptist on anyone. It will get you into trouble. But I love him. I love John the Baptist. He takes no quarter. He doesn't care if you are one of the chosen ones. If he says it's what you do with your life that matters. Have you repented of the ways that lead to death? What counts is your life. Is it blossoming? Is it green and blossoming? Because if it's dead wood, it goes on the fire. Now, not that I'm an apocalyptic eschatologist like John. I don't think that the world is about to come to end in some sort of supernatural contest. But don't you think that John has a couple of things at least right? If we want our lives to be green and blossoming, then there are parts of ourselves that we may need to throw on the fire, metaphorically speaking, of course. The crowd asks him, then what are we supposed to do? And he says, if you have 2 coats, give one away. And he said, do the same with your food. Taxmen also came to be baptized and said, teacher, what should we do? And he told them, no more extortion. Collect only what is required by law. Soldiers asked him, and what should we do? And he told them, no shakedowns, no blackmail, and be content with your rations. Okay, all right, I hear that. And I start thinking, well, shoot, I've got more than one coat. And I have more than enough food. But I don't extort money, and I don't blackmail anyone. Except maybe a little bit when I remind people about pledging to the church. Is that blackmail? Maybe? I hope not. But I wonder if John's saying something deeper than just the literal meaning of these words, that what if it's about how we relate to these things that we own and do to one another or don't do for one another? What if John is asking us, what if he's encouraging us to really know, deep down knowing that God has provided everything that we need and that God is present in all that we do? Not the up in the sky grandpa God, but the God who invites us to look through God's eyes at this beautiful created world and to take responsibility for the common good. To see with God's eyes that we are all related and loved, and thus if one of us is cold, then we're all cold. Because to see with God's eyes is maybe to see that when we cheat another, we cheat ourselves. So I don't know if y'all know this, but there's a group of us pastors who meet. Lutheran, Presbyterian, the UU Church, Story Dwelling, there's a bunch of us. And last month, we've been talking about the rhetoric that has been happening around homelessness in Central Oregon, and how detrimental it was to people. That we have dehumanized people with this language that we keep seeing online. And so Steve Koski, who's over at First Pres, was like, you know what, I'm going to start something and then we can all add to it, and let's send something into the paper asking for, just to bring the temperature down and to remember who we are and whose we are, right? So the letter made it into the paper this week. I think it was a good letter. But then the first online comment came on. Oy vey, y'all. Now here's my commitment to you. I don't argue with anyone online anymore. I used to, but I have found that does really literally no good. So I don't argue with anyone online. But this person's argument was that neighbors are actually people who live right by you, and these people lived off the freeway or wherever they live, and he's not responsible for them. He also mentioned he's not a religious person, and so he didn't really get the argument that we were trying to make. But y'all do. Y'all do. The argument is that what Jesus teaches us is that we're all neighbors, and that we have to care for one another, for all of us, and the common good, even when it's obnoxious, even when there are people we don't particularly like or we think we don't like. And see, that's where the rubber hits the road for us Christians. in the intractable problems, or the wicked problems as we call it in the church, in our world that are not easy problems to deal with. And yet here they are for us, showing up now in Central Oregon, and we wish it would go away. But as the rain was coming down yesterday, and then the snow, and then the rain, and then the snow, I kept thinking how thankful I was to be inside, and how scared I was for all our neighbors outside. John is preparing the way for Jesus. There's that great song, "Prepare ye the way of the Lord. Make room for the message that God is near, is here." So how do we prepare for Christmas, for Jesus? It's got to start here, in our hearts, in our minds. And that's where it starts, but it comes out with how we choose to treat and speak about one another. To remember that if our leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, or otherwise use dehumanizing language about God's people, that we speak up. That we work together for the common good and solutions that are good for the whole, not just for ourselves. John says, what counts is your life. Is it green and blossoming? Because if it's dead wood, it goes on the fire. Judgment comes whether we want it or not. Our behavior always judges us. Always. People know us, not by what we say, always, but by what we do. The baby's on the way. The joy is just around the corner. How will we prepare the way for Jesus? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God, Mother of us all. Amen.
Many imaginative tales have been spun about the inn and the people who may have been involved in the story. As we've already said, we know very little about the circumstances from the Bible. Another theory is that it wasn't an inn at all, but the downstairs of a house where the family would keep the animals under the top floor where the family lived. This scenario suggests that each and every home can be a birthing place for more goodness and grace in this world. It suggests that this house of God, this church, might contain a surprising nook or cranny that could house a holy endeavor for bringing more joy to someone's life. Thank you for your continued giving in support of Ben Church. There are two ways to continue giving in this time. You can utilize our online offering. It's called e-offering, and you can access that on our website. You are also always welcome to send a check to the church office.
Thank you. I want to thank you very, very much for offering up this space in your inn. In the midst of a lot of challenges that COVID has brought, which we all know, has been a space for our Sunday meal. We had one space, it wasn't working anymore, and then we had another space and we were given some notice that that wasn't going to work anymore. And there were a lot of other challenges happening, so to have this one be solved by you all so close at a place that our diners know already so well from your Wednesday efforts was huge relief for me, huge relief for everybody. So thank you so very much for that. That was a big deal for us. So yes, that meal has been happening here for many months now, and we're pretty grateful to have that happen. We haul our little our little cart full of food from over there to over here, and make it happen. So thank you for that. The other thing, I think it's very important to let you all know, you specifically here at Ben Church, is that we're very grateful for who you have raised up here to be who you are, that helps so many, and helps us at Family Kitchen and make what we do happen. Mike Grigsby will always be a face that keeps coming back to me with his leadership on the volunteer teams for dinners there, and all of you who have helped along the way. You are raising up each other to be those people that make a difference, and that's huge, so thank you for that as well. Just a little bit about Family Kitchen and what's been going on in these last couple of years. I have this odd way of saying to groups where COVID has been a bit of a blessing, if we can allow that to happen. We have found that we were able to continue. There was never a hiccup. We never closed down. A lot of things did, and I understand that happens, but because of the kind of volunteers that we have and the kind of staff and support, never closed. We did have to shift to only meals that are to go. That's painful, mostly because we were first a place to get nourishment, but we were second, very closely, a place to gather and be able to be together. And I cannot tell you how hard it is on all of the volunteers and staff to not be able to do that. So hopefully soon we'll be able to do it. The gift, however, has been that we took the time to think through some things. Sustainability was one of the things we thought about. All right, we're about to use a bunch of to-go packaging, a bunch of gloves, a bunch of masks. Where can we make the least impact under those circumstances? So we have been making some changes, even while we're adding to the landfill quite a bit. But it's compostable packaging, it's food waste, composting. There's a lot of things that we're doing from that perspective. Another that I'm really thrilled with, and this may sound not intuitive to you, but the board, we took the time to say, all right, everything is to go now. That whole bit about sitting inside and having a meal together and having that be such a focus is not happening. So what can we learn from having meals ready to go all the time? And one of those things was let go of some of that need for people to be present. We had to be present to have a meal, and instead, who can we serve that we aren't serving because the meals weren't to go? So I can tell you that right now, we have come to a spot where 1,100 meals, more or less, every week are going out to people we don't see. And I get shivers every time because that is just something we weren't doing. There are people that just aren't comfortable coming and sitting down in a place that's full of folks, even before COVID, believe it or not, if you can remember back to that. And so there's that, there's people that just couldn't get their period, there's just all sorts of stuff that, all of a sudden we're realizing, here's this meal, take, it's fine. The other piece was we had some past kind of issues with how much anybody should be able to have. She could only have this much because we have to worry about, the next person that's coming in, are they gonna get enough? We let go of that. For the most part. I've still got some teaching to do with a few teams, but we let go of it for the most part. And funny thing, there's always enough food. We know that from the work that you all do, from your beliefs. There's always enough food. So, plus that actually helps with waste. If you give people only what they want, they tend to not throw away the stuff that they didn't want if you gave it to them before. You know what I mean? So there's been some really good learnings through COVID as well. And so we're thankful for having that pause to kind of try and work that through. Right now we are serving, last month actually it was 7,700 meals. And I can tell you that when we got to 5,000 meals somewhere a couple of years ago, I was panicking and oh my goodness, this is crazy. It's now 7,700 meals, at least last month it's been averaging right around 7,000 or 7,200. Another place that welcomed us into their inn was that we started a meal in Sisters just a few months ago as well, after quite a bit of searching and finding out whether or not there was a need there and whether we were the ones to help fill it or not. We did an extensive bit of meeting with different groups and things. And so the Sisters Community Church has welcomed us in on Tuesday nights to be able to serve a meal in Sisters, and we'll see how we grow from there, but we wanted to make sure it was something we could sustain when we started it, so that's where we're at with that. And I just, again, want to say that it's because of, 350 plus, actually at this point we're really probably closer to 400 volunteers every month that flow through our spots that make this happen. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you for that. And I also want to thank you and for keeping us on our toes with questions and things. So that's something I like to remind groups of too. If ever you have a question of how we operate or anything, frankly, it's pretty easy. Our website is familykitchen.org, and any of the possible contact things come straight to me, so you can know that I will do my best to answer right away. So thank you.
Today's closing carol is "What Child Is This?" It invites peasants and kings to claim Christ as their own. Chatterton Dix was not a clergy person like most of the hymn writers of the 19th century. He was a businessman in England. He asked the question, "Why lies he in such mean estate?" referring to the stable. And in the original second verse, answers that by connecting the humble wooden birth manger to the wood of the cross, born at his death. Why lies he in such mean estate where ox and ass are feeding? Good Christian, fear, for sinners here the silent word is pleading. Nails, spear shall pierce him through, the cross be borne for me, for you. Hail, hail, the Word made flesh, the babe, the Son of Mary. True joy acknowledges the suffering of the world and invites all people, regardless of status, to claim Christ's grace and joy as salve for the soul. May we offer warm laps and soft lullabies to soothe a hurting world. What child is this who lay to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels breathe with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch our keeping. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. So bring him incense, gold, and myrrh. Come, peasant king, to own him. The King of kings salvation brings. Let loving hearts enthrone him. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. Oh, raise a song on high. His mother sings a lullaby. Oh, joy, for Christ is born, the babe, the Son of
Go forth with this benediction. May God's door of welcome swing open in your heart and in your life. May Christ's humble first dwelling remind you of the plenty you already know. And may the Spirit lead you into more possibility and hospitality than you can imagine, making room in the inn for all. May it be so for you. May it be so for us. May it be so for this church. Amen.